Hey, Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. All praises to the Heavenly Father. His name is Yahweh. The name of His Son, Yahweh Shai, Mashayak, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. In the name of the Holy Spirit. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Yahweh Shai is coming to deliver 144,000. The elect, the Yashar Allah, and also the elect remnant that have been scattered. Brothers, sisters, and the children out there that believe in Yahweh Shai, are in sincerity and truth, about the mind while mouth, and sincerity and truth, and double honors to our elders and apostles, a great millstone came back in the reincarnation. So this is just an update on a foreshadowing of what's going to happen here very soon according to prophecy. And I'm going to get some scriptures. I just want to get a little bit of information out of these articles that just came out recently. This is back in May this year, but this is recent, compared to May of 2020, or May 2016. This is May 2024, so this is this year. It says 3 killed in riots after France backs new Caledonia vote change. So there's some reformation happened to the way voting was going to be happening in France, and the results of that led to riots and protesting, and 3 killed. And that, if you see that what's happening over there is going to come to the States. I mean, the tension between races, political parties, states, just even corporations, competition between corporations. There's a great divide and disagreement as far as beliefs and ideologies of how people want things to go for themselves and for their fellow countrymen, so to say. And it resulted in 3 killed. And we see, if that were to happen here in America, that would spawn a chaos and disorder that would not be able to be controlled. Even though they plan to control it, they want to put forth the chaos, then bring in the order. That's according to their plan. Order out of chaos, part of their dogma that they follow here really across the globe. But in America, if this were to happen, riots after the election, who knows where that would go? I mean, you're dealing with, look at the images that are being put forth. You have a so-called black woman, which she's an Elamite. It goes back to the nation of Elam in the scriptures. And then you have a so-called white man, the Edomite, heading up the country. I mean, these are the two Satanists that are being put forth. And people, they always talk about choosing lessers of 2 evil. These are super evils, At least 3 people have been killed in the worst unrest in New Caledonia in more than 30 years, as rioting continued and schools remained closed after France adopted controversial reforms to Pacific Territories voting rules. So, France, they're starting to include some islands, and basically it's going to marginalize those voters. And the people of France are not with it. Despite heavy armed security forces fanning out across the capital, Nomia, and the ordering of a nighttime curfew, rioting continued overnight virtually unabated. The curfew has now been extended until Thursday night, said Butler. So let's look up this word unabated. See if it's going to let me copy. It's all good. But it says buildings and cars have been torched, set alight. Schools and other institutions have been shut for the next few days, and no flights were taken off. Flights were taken off from the international airport, she added. So the airports were shut down. Kids weren't going to schools, and certain corporations were shut down. So if kids have to stay home, well, parents need to be watching their kids. So now you have parents taking off of work. So things like this also hurt the economy. Riots sprung from an election can cripple an economy very quickly. There's no flights or transportation. People are stuck. Hundreds of people, including around 100 gendarmes, have been injured in the unrest. French Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin said Wednesday in Paris. On Wednesday, streets in the capital were packed pocked with the shells of burned out cars and buildings, including a sports store, Slovakia, pardon me, and a large concrete climbing wall. Numerous arsons. There's another one I wanted to. Here we go. The territory's La Tantauta International Airport remained closed to commercial flights, and people were urged to restrict any travel during the day, the High Commission said. Anger has been simmering for weeks over planes in Paris, and that's what's going on right now in the States. A lot of anger is simmering because in a very few short months, people are going to go out there and believe that casting a vote is going to determine who they want to be in office, when in actuality, it's already preset and predestinated who's going to be in office. And then the way that the votes go here, you have an electoral college, so some states will have more votes than others. You know, I mean, they find the person in charge has the final say over your region. So they call it democracy. It's really not. It says critics say the move would marginalize the indigenous Kanak people, who make up about 40% of the population, by allowing more recent European arrivals to vote. So there's a lot of tension over this. All right, a lot of tension over this. Now there's another article I got, because here in America, it was three people dying because of protests. That's pretty serious. Now imagine if it was 300 people, you know, and what happened on January 6th or January 7th, when Biden got put in office and they let all those people ransack the Senate building. They just allowed that to happen. When it gets out of control, there's going to be a point when that happens, but it's not going to be orchestrated. You know, the chaos, the people are going to move in the way that they want to move. I mean, they all got lined up to get their DNA compromised. So on the books, I mean, it's not. Of course, it's not mainstream news. Who knows how they're going to have the people moving during those times, you know? Plus, in the wintertime, food is more strict. In the ancient times, food would be more scarce. These times are a lot more harder, you know? Winter could come early, you know? So a lot of factors play in to with the tensions rising. And another one is just from social media being weaponized, all right, is another reason why what you see what's going on in France. You know, it's got everybody, it's got their emotions on a high alert. You know, a lot of people are in distress and stressed like they are here in Babylon. Now, this was a Sunday, today, the 18th. I'm sorry, this was yesterday, the 18th, 2024, from The Guardian. It says inciting rioters in Britain was a test run for Elon Musk. Just see what happens. Just see what he plans for America. So this guy, you know, he took over X. He took over Twitter. This guy right here. And he just had an interview with Trump, and he was urged by a lot of people internationally because they didn't want him to do that interview, but he said, "F it, I'm gonna do it anyways." You know. But yeah, let me just read it just a little bit. I'm not gonna read a lot of this, but I gotta get some scriptures here, because the reason why I'm going through these articles again, this is prophecy. I mean, this is the road. This is part of World War III, and how Babylon is gonna fall from within. All right, just over 4 years ago, an insurrectionist mob found each other online, descended on Washington, stormed the Capitol, and threatened the vice president with a noose. But that was the good old days. We're living in a different reality now, one in which the billionaires have been unchained. Because back in the golden days of 2020, tech platforms still reeling from a public backlash had at least to look as if they gave a shit. Twitter employed 4,000 plus people in trust and safety, tasked with getting dangerous content off its platform and sniffing out foreign influence operations. Facebook tried to ignore public pressure, but eventually banned political ads that sought to delegitimize voting, and scores of academics and researchers in the election integrity units worked to identify and flag dangerous disinformation. So if this was banned, political ads were banned from Facebook, and they're all linked with X and all this stuff. They're all in bed together, right? Because they all work for the FBI and send over information to them and for the CIA. So for Elon to sit down and do an interview with someone running for president, like that's his right hand man, that goes totally against what was being spoken about in this paragraph here. All right, delegitimizing voting. Um, Let me just jump down here a little bit. Yeah, this is says because as Trump has already showed us, and as Jair Bolsonaro learned, it's not even necessarily about winning anymore, or even about a single day. The entire period between the result and the inauguration is an anything can happen moment, not just for America but for the world. So again, that's how we know this is the sinful kingdom spoken about Amos 9 and 8. Because if the racial tensions and riots here were to break out in all the cities because of this election, this would affect the whole world, right? A lot could happen between now and then, especially between Israel and Iran. Who knows? That thing could kick up so tense that World War III starts a lot sooner on a larger scale. All right. It says, let me jump down here. Let me jump down here. He got away with it, and if you're not terrified both by none of this is happening in a vacuum. For a brief minute after 2016, there was an attempt to understand how these tech platforms had been used to spread lies and falsehood, or mis and disinformation as we can to know them and to try to prevent it. That's why a lot of our videos get deleted when the Shirat was coming out, which means the incision in Hebrew. When that was coming out and everybody was out there getting that Shirat, we got lumped in there, and a lot of our videos got removed for medical misinformation. But then they turned around and came out and said and brought out the same information and said what we were saying was right. So that's why Elon even did that too. All right, he even came out and spoke about the jump shots and how that the information on it was misleading, and people are it's a health hazard. A years-long effort by Republican operatives to politicize the entire subject of misinformation has won. It barely even now exists in U.S. tech circles. Anyone who suggests it does. Researchers, academics, trust and safety teams are now all part of the censorship industrial complex. All right. Let me just read this last paragraph and get some scriptures. Um, I'll read this. Just last week, I'll read it quick. Just last week, Facebook killed off, because this is important. Remember, they had a team to tackle all this stuff. Basically, Elon, he deleted all those jobs for X and replaced it with new people. And of course, they probably pulled those people from a certain market to make sure that they fulfilled the plan of the order out of chaos, which spawned from Esau Edom's New World Order. All right, he's not going to allow anyone splinter secret cells to get in and and not follow the program. So Elon, when you read this, it's basically replacing people. Just last week, Facebook killed off one of its last remaining transparency tools, CrowdTangle, a tool that was crucial in understanding what was happening online during the dark days before and after 2020 inauguration. It did this despite the pleas and researchers and academics just because it could. In 2020, these efforts seemed pathetic, paltry, and inadequate to the scale of the threat. Now they're gone. Just as the tools are becoming even more dangerous, last week OpenAI crowed about finding an Iranian group that used ChatGPT to run a U.S. election influence campaign, which would have been more impressive if the last that was heard from its trust and safety team was when it was dissolved back in May after its co-founders resigned. But what Musk, the new self-appointed Lord of Misrule, has done is to rip off the mask. He's shown that you don't even have to pretend to care. In Musk's world, trust is mistrust, and safety is censorship. His goal is chaos, and it's coming. All right, just like that chaos we saw in France. Isaiah 19:1. The burden of Egypt, and this is your modern day Egypt. I mean, you can just look on the back of the U.S. dollar bill, and there's a pyramid. We're all the way over here in the West. Why do you have a pyramid from the Middle East on your money? All right, and an Edomite on the front. And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. Now Isaiah is prophesying the downfall of Egypt, but he wasn't in the Egyptian empire. All right, so he's prophesying of some future events. Verse 2, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. So infighting, civil war is coming. All right, there's civil war brewing all around all these other nations surrounding their elections, and there's all these protests and riots and looting. All right, and failing economies. The economies take a dip during the election time, and look how the money was just moved recently once this war kind of kicked up with Iran and Israel making attacks. We just needed to increase. That's also, people are going to be fighting against each other because of that. There's people always constantly protesting outside the White House with Palestinian flags. So, and there's a lot of people who are chanting for Israel, but they're doing it silently. But when all hell breaks loose and martial law is instituted, people aren't going to care. Everybody's going to take their sides, and the Egyptians are going to stand against the Egyptians. And you're going to be you're going to have all this social media fluff in your head, and you're going to be flying off emotions. People are just going to be reacting. And they shall fight everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor. Right, because a lot of people, you'll be friends for a long time and not know the political party, then they tell you who they're voting for, and now they're an enemy. You know, now you're looking at them like a threat. City against city and kingdom against kingdom, and that's what Yahweh Shah prophesied about. And those are the times we're in. We're going to have different areas and militias that are formed here. That's another thing I want to bring out in this article. They're going to be going against each other. All right. And Elon's going to play a part in that through social media. Here we go. It says, but still, vast swaths of American population have become convinced the vote had been stolen, and a violent mob almost pulled off a coup. Fast forward 4 years, and we're now in a very different and significantly worse place, because while Kamala Harris is enjoying her hot girl summer and liberal America is sighing with relief, it's to Britain that the U.S. needs to look. Again, everything that's happening over there in those other countries is going to come here. And I use France as an example with those 3 people dying because of their reform to their voting process. That's just reformation to a voting process. There's no reformation here. You just have 2 lunatics on the ballot, and people are fed up. It says, to rioters in the streets and burning cars and contagious and uncontained racism spreading like wildfire across multiple platforms, to lies amplified and spread algorithms long before the fact have been reported, laundered, whitewashing politicians and professionals, media grifters. Jump down. It says, the streets are for now quiet. The violence has been crushed. But this is Britain, where extremist political violence is someone carrying a brick and throwing a chair leg. In America, there aren't just automatic weapons and rights to openly carry firearms. There are actual militias. Regardless of how well Harris is doing in the polls, America is facing a singularly dangerous moment, whomever wins the election. So whoever wins, hey, this prophecy is going to come to pass. All right, there's going to be major infighting, and France is an example. And you can look to Britain as an example as well, and these other countries like Venezuela and Brazil, and what happens when someone gets elected and they don't approve. Or in Mexico, the woman became president, if I'm not mistaken, and you had a lot of militias going around killing women that were in political positions all throughout Mexico in the different provinces. You know, so hey, I just wanted to bring that out. You know, stay vigilant, stay sober, like Yahweh Shemiah Shai told us. Keep your eyes up, watch the news, because the things going on in the world indeed affect us. The geopolitics, the geopolitical environment, the pulse of that environment affects Babylon the Great. All right, and that's also prophecy. So all praises to Yahweh Shemiah Shai. Shalom to hopeful elect. Double honor to our elders and apostles, a great millstone. Shalom.